Here's a question for you. What links affordable housing, arsonists, tourism, the Welsh language and council tax? The answer, second homes. Now I want to understand, if you're a young person from an area with a lot of these second homes, are they pricing you out of the place that you grew up in? None of what we're about to talk about is free of controversy or debate. In essence, young people are understandably stressed about the fact that they can't get on the housing ladder in their own communities. The difficulties people face buying their first place are part of a wider housing affordability crisis across the UK. However, in some areas where there are fewer houses to pick from, it can get tricky for locals wanting to buy.
Hiya, my name is Rhodri. I'm from Crymych in West Wales. I do find it really hard being a young person trying to get on the property ladder. Local wages in the economy do not simply match the average house price we have around here. And also more and more people tend to move from away into the area from England to buy second homes and holiday homes and so forth, which is a real big shame. There's a big loss of community, Welsh community especially, here in West Wales, and young people like me are simply driven to buy houses elsewhere in cheaper regions.
So is Rhodri right? Well, yes and no. The census data that we've got from 2021 does show lots of English people do use second homes in Wales, roughly 75% actually. But it's not that simple. Welsh people use them too. In fact, in Rhodri's neck of the woods, Pembrokeshire, lots of Welsh people use second homes. Regardless of who is buying and using these houses though, the point does remain that people are struggling to buy their first place.
Hi Megan, I'm just going to put the mic on for you.
Gareth Lewis is the BBC's political editor in Wales, and he knows a thing or two about why this story is so blinking complicated.
I think there's a sense that, a fear that in some parts of Wales, second homes can price local people out of the housing market because people who might be coming in from outside to buy a second home or a holiday home might just simply have more money at their disposal than people who live in the local area. There's also a fear, given where the tourist hotspots are in Wales, that this might disproportionately affect communities where Welsh is the dominant language.
And as is so often the case, Gareth, with these stories, they're complicated. What's the sort of other side of this argument?
Yeah, there's a balance to strike with this, isn't there? Because on the one hand, politicians who bring in these policies want to protect those local communities, but tourism is a really, really big industry in Wales as well. And the counter argument to this is that people who come in from outside and own these second homes, these holiday homes, also spend money in the local area. So that's good for the local bakers, the local butchers, the local shops, the local pubs. And trying to find that balance is politically and practically, a really difficult thing to grapple with.
When you've got beaches like these, it's hardly surprising that people flock to parts of Wales when the sun is shining. Yes, it does stop raining occasionally. And look, for some people, the ultimate dream is actually owning a house on the coast or in the countryside, a bolt hole on the weekend maybe, a place to chill. But the argument for some is this: when the weather changes, those visitors go home, leaving houses empty and villages, well, pretty quiet. And there are huge concerns that when a community has a significant number of second homes, local people are priced out. One campaign group, Hawli Fyw Adre, which means the right to live at home if you're not fluent in Welsh, say there's a second homes crisis in Wales and that needs urgently tackling.
Prif nod Hawli Fyw Adre ydy sicrhau fod pobl leol a phobl ifanc yn enwedig yn gallu fforddio byw yn eu cymunedau hunan, yn hytrach na cael eu prisio allan o farchnadau. Be sy'n digwydd ydy pam mae pobl yn cael eu prisio allan o'r farchnad, mae'r bobl yn cael eu gwthio allan o'r cymunedau, a beth sy'n ôl wedyn ydy llwyth o dau gwag a chymunedau yn gwegian oherwydd hynny.
This isn't exactly a new topic, and it's not just about money and affordability. People have been pretty fired up about second homes for quite a while. Decades, actually. And a lot of it comes down to culture and history. Let's rewind to 1975, when members of Cymdeithas yr Iaith, the Welsh Language Society, protested because they were fined a £5 each for occupying second homes in Gwynedd.
We occupied this village where the majority of houses are holiday homes, to draw attention of the district councils and the Welsh office to what can happen and what is happening in rural Wales at the moment.
Yes, it was me in 1975, explaining why Cymdeithas yr Iaith had taken action to draw attention to the housing problems in rural Wales and the impact of second homes on Welsh-speaking communities.
While lots of the protesting and campaigning has been and continues to be peaceful, in the 70s things did take a turn. A group called Meibion Glyndŵr set fire to 200 English-owned holiday cottages and second homes in Wales.
Ar un i roedd feddwl fysa beth fel hyn yn digwydd mewn pentre tawel.
Dyma'r ail du haf lle bu tan neithiwr tan yr
Ma'n ymddangos nad oes na fawr o neb wedi gweld unrhyw beth am
Ffaith
hais.
ydy, mae'n rhywun yn mynd i gael ei ladd yn ystod y cyfnod nesaf.
Meibion Glyndŵr, or Sons of Glyndŵr, is a reference to a Welsh soldier called Owain Glyndŵr, who led a revolt to end English rule in Wales in the Middle Ages. And this choice of name is anything but random, because these arson attacks in the 70s and 80s happened in rural, predominantly Welsh-speaking areas, places like Gwynedd.
Oh yes, this is the first time that the arsonists have come to this part of the Rhodri Peninsula, and we are very frightened indeed because there are so many holiday homes around us.
I feel very, very shocked. I didn't think that anything like this would happen in Aberdaron.
And the timing wasn't random either. In 1979, Wales voted against devolution, meaning a National Assembly wasn't going to happen in Cardiff, well, at least for a while. It angered and frustrated a lot of people. And while some were arrested, no one was ever charged for the arson attacks themselves. The story was huge. Songs were written about the attacks. Communities were fascinated. They speculated, they gossiped. MI5 got involved. People were incorrectly arrested, then released, and then given compensation. And then, over the border in England, estate agents were also targeted. The fires stopped burning when a man was found guilty of sending 4 incendiary devices in the post and possession of explosive substances. And then it was all sort of over. The group slipped into the night and, well, they disappeared. And to this day, nobody really knows who else was involved in this group of firebombers. The mystery remains. Let's get back to what's going on now. The people in power, the politicians, all pretty much agree that housing needs to be affordable for locals. Wales has its own parliament, Senedd Cymru, which means politicians in Cardiff make the call on second homes. They're aware too that countless communities in Wales are very reliant on tourism. They need people to visit and spend their money. It's actually estimated that as an industry, tourism contributes between £3 and £4 billion a year to the Welsh economy. So the question is this: how do you find the balance between a healthy tourism industry and a thriving local community? Well, to understand some of this, we need to get our heads around council tax and planning permission. Stick with me, this is important.
One of the ways that politicians have tried to stop this growth in second homes is to charge or enable a premium to be charged on council tax. Now, this law came in back in 2017. Some councils have taken up that offer. They tend to be in tourist hotspots as well. Gwynedd, for example, charges a 150% premium. Pembrokeshire has just brought down its council tax premium on second homes from 200% to 150%. So that extra money, if you own one of those properties, that you will have to pay. Gwynedd Council also tried to bring in something called Article 4, which means that you would need planning permission to change a main dwelling into a second home or into a holiday let. They ran into difficulties with that, though, because that decision was quashed by the High Court in November last year.
So picture this, scenario 1. I've just bought my dream second home. But once I've got the keys, what sort of bills will be landing on my doorstep? Well, if this cottage is going to be my private weekend getaway, but crucially stays empty for the rest of the year, I'm looking at paying a council tax bill. Now, to give you an idea, my hypothetical 3-bed chocolate box cottage in Narberth, which is in Pembrokeshire, by the way, could cost more than £6,000 a year. Now, that's because the local council charge a 125% council tax premium on second homes. But if it was my only home, my primary residence, it could cost just over 2.5k a year. Scenario 2. What if I decided this second property could earn me a couple of extra quid? What if I rented it out as a self-catering holiday let and turned it into a little side hustle? Well, if we had a scorching summer and it was full for at least 182 days, but available for 252 days, I'd pay business rates, not council tax. The key thing here is that it would likely cost me less. But here's the thing. If the weather was rubbish and people chose, I don't know, a villa on the Costa Brava over my hypothetical gorgeous cottage in Pembrokeshire, I'd be back to paying council tax because I failed to reach the 182-day target over several years. Now look, this might feel complicated, but this tiny bit of maths can have huge consequences when it comes to the bills that people pay in Wales.
Welcome to beautiful Abersoch in North Wales. My name is Beverley, and I have been coming to this area since I was a tiny little girl, and I'm in my 60s now. We have a little 3-bedroom terrace bungalow, and it is, I think, £7,000 a year we now pay in council tax, which is very expensive. A lot of the other properties on our estate, which was actually built as a tourist village, a holiday village, back in the early 90s, and we bought it 30 years ago. And in that time, we've seen lots of changes, lots of businesses have come into the area, and they are now struggling because the tourists don't feel welcome. Second homeowners don't feel welcome. Many of them aren't coming down, and the properties in the area are getting into sort of disrepair, which is really, really sad to see.
Now, just to remind you, Beverley's place is in Gwynedd, the county with the most second homes in Wales, according to the most recent data. And recent house prices there are interesting too. They're down 12%. That's a bigger drop than the rest of Wales. Now, some people think that it could be because the local council has increased council tax on second homes. And look, while we can't be certain exactly why this is happening in Gwynedd, for some people in the area, cheaper houses equals amazing news. But is it that simple? Let's just pause for a second. Carol lives in Pembrokeshire, and as someone who set up a property company, she's got a few things to say about second homes.
I think the fact is that we all realise we need second homes. It's their money into the economy that is absolutely vital. Second home owners are the people that give a lot of employment to young local people, be it tradesmen, builders, cleaners, all sorts of people. And they also have the money to spend in the restaurants and cafes and shops and buy local produce. And that's absolutely vital to the community here. Without them, we'll lose jobs and there won't be any jobs for young local people to keep them here.
So even if second homes weren't a thing and suddenly all of those houses were available to be bought by local people, would they actually be desirable? And crucially, would young people be able to afford them? Would they even want them? What if there were no jobs? Or what about schools? Is there enough going on to make young people want to stay? What then?
The obvious answer to it, I think, which I've been saying for the last 25 years, is to stop houses under the average price of a property in this area, which at the moment is about 250,000, being sold as second homes. Those are the properties that young local families can afford, not the £1 million houses that second homers buy.
So while politicians and big thinkers try and work this out, it doesn't really help people like Greg, who just wants to buy his first place.
Recently, I've been looking at properties in the area and I'd love to buy one, but they are just very expensive. And this is partly due to people coming to the area and buying second homes and using them for holiday homes or holiday lets. This means there are fewer properties in the area, which increases the price, and it's quite simply pricing locals like myself out.
This chat about second homes isn't just a Welsh thing. The Scottish Government declared a national housing emergency in 2024 and decided to give local councils more power to control second homes. And just like in Wales, young people in rural parts of Scotland are leaving because they can't afford to buy homes and there aren't enough job opportunities. The government hopes that by increasing taxes on second homes, it'll put people off buying them, free up more housing maybe, and help keep young people living in the communities that they grew up in. And here's the thing, there is evidence that behaviours are changing. Some second homeowners are putting properties up for sale. But look, if we've learnt anything, it's that these things are never simple. These policies might be raising money and they might be reducing the number of second homes, but nobody really knows yet what the impact will be long term. And just like in Wales, global communities who absolutely need tourists want to know how these things might shape up. So Gareth, we've heard from so many people about what they think can be done. So I'm going to put you on the spot, crystal ball moment. What do you think the future holds when it comes to second homes in Wales?
Yeah, if I had the answer to that. Look, I think we're going to continue to a certain extent with that tricky balance that we've got at the moment. You know, trying to weigh up the needs, wants and desires of people who live in a particular area with the needs, wants and desires of people who would like to move into there and spend their money in the local community. There is one other thing to throw in as well, that we've got a new Plaid Cymru government here, the Plaid Cymru government in Wales, and they are pledging to build 20,000 new social homes by 2030. The root of a lot of this problem, both in Wales and across a lot of the Western world, is that there simply aren't enough houses. If we can build more, then some of those problems that we've been talking about start to get alleviated.
There's a lot to get your head around, but the long and short of it is this. Second homes are stressing a lot of people out across the globe. Communities want visitors, busy cafes, bustling beaches filled with tourists posting gorgeous snaps on socials. But they also want young people settling down, affording their first homes, speaking the local language, taking their kids to the school in the village. There are clearly no silver bullets here. Let us know in the comments what you think, or, I don't know, send us a postcard.